The sky over Haifa, Israel, was a bruised purple, streaked with smoke from the Iran-Israel war's aftermath, where missile strikes had left the port city a patchwork of rubble and resilience. It was July 2025, and the air buzzed with the roar of helicopter blades slicing through the dusk, their downdraft kicking up dust from a shattered airfield. Captain Marcus Tate, a 40-year-old black pilot from Detroit, gripped the controls of a Red Cross chopper, his flight helmet snug, his dark eyes scanning the horizon. His Navy jumpsuit was patched from years of aid missions, his calloused hands steady despite the turbulence. Marcus was a volunteer, airlifting supplies to stranded survivors in Haifa's outskirts, but his international team, mostly white, led by a skeptical Brit named Colin Hargrove, didn't trust the Yank in the cockpit. Their whispers, "He's not up for this," cut sharper than the wind. Marcus had flown in worse, Haiti quakes, Sudan floods, but Haifa was a beast. Iran's ballistic missiles and Israel's nuclear response had gutted the city, leaving hospitals flooded, roads crumbled, and thousands trapped. He'd joined the Red Cross airlift to deliver food, medicine, and hope, his chopper a lifeline where jets couldn't land. From the co-pilot's seat, Colin, a wiry ex-RAF medic with a clipped accent, checked gauges, his eyes flicking to Marcus, his voice low. "Sure you can handle this, mate?" he said, his tone half joking, half doubting, his smirk a jab. Marcus's jaw tightened, his voice calm, his Detroit grit a shield. "I've got it, Hargrove. Check the nav." In the cargo bay, the team, Anna, a Swedish nurse, and Liam, an Australian paramedic, secured crates, their glances sharp, their whispers echoing Colin's doubt. "He's new to this zone," Anna muttered, her blonde braid swinging, her voice low. "Hope he doesn't crash us." Liam, strapping bandages, snorted. "Yeah, this ain't Detroit." Their words stung, but Marcus kept his focus, his hands steady, his chopper banking over Haifa's ruins, where survivors waved from a flooded hospital roof. He'd faced bias before, flight school, commercial gigs, but here, with lives on the line, it hit harder. On the ground, a local volunteer, Yael, a young Israeli medic, coordinated landings, her radio crackling, her Hebrew accent sharp as she guided Marcus's chopper. "Captain Tate, you're clear," she said, her voice warm, her eyes on the sky, ignoring the team's whispers. Yael had seen Marcus's precision landings, her respect unspoken but clear. Red Cross coordinator Sarah Klein, a no-nonsense American, stood nearby, her clipboard a constant, her voice firm. "Tate's our best shot," she told Yael, her eyes narrowing at Colin's crew, sensing their tension. "Keep them focused." As Marcus descended, the chopper's blades thumped, the hospital roof looming, survivors' faces desperate below. Colin leaned over, his voice sharp. "Don't botch this, Tate," he said, his smirk tight, his hands gripping the dash. Marcus's eyes stayed on the controls, his voice steady. "Eyes on the target, not me," he said, his hands easing the chopper down, a perfect hover. The team's whispers quieted, Anna's braid still, Liam's bandages steady, but Colin's smirk lingered, a challenge Marcus felt in his bones. The rotor wash kicked up debris, the survivors waved, and Marcus's chopper was their lifeline, but his team's doubt was a storm he'd have to fly through. "All right, let's dive back into the turbulent skies above Haifa, Israel, where the July 2025 dusk is heavy with the scars of the Iran-Israel war, missile strikes and nuclear fallout that left the port city a patchwork of rubble and resilience. The air hums with the thump of helicopter blades and the acrid bite of smoke, floodlights cutting through the haze to reveal a shattered airfield below. Captain Marcus Tate, a 40-year-old black pilot from Detroit, grips the controls of a Red Cross chopper, his flight helmet snug, his Navy jumpsuit patched from years of aid missions. His dark eyes scan the horizon, steady despite the turbulence and the cutting whispers of his team, led by Colin Hargrove, a wiry ex-RAF medic with a smirk and a superiority complex. who doubt the yank in the cockpit. Colin's latest jab, "Don't botch this, Tate," still stings as Marcus hovers over a flooded hospital roof, survivors waving desperately below. His crew, Anna, a Swedish nurse, and Liam, an Australian paramedic, mutter doubts, but local volunteer Yael and Red Cross coordinator Sarah Klein back Marcus, their trust a lifeline. The rotor wash kicks up debris, the choppers hum a heartbeat, and Marcus's skill is about to turn his team's bias into a lesson they'll never forget. The chopper's blades thumped against the Haifa dusk, the hospital roof below a jagged island in a sea of rubble and floodwater. Marcus Tate eased the cyclic, his hands steady, his dark eyes locked on the landing zone, a patch of concrete barely wide enough for the skids. Survivors, dozens, their faces pale, their clothes torn, waved frantically, their shouts drowned by the rotor's roar. In the co-pilot's seat, Colin Hargrove gripped the dash, his clipped British accent sharp, his smirk a thin veil over his doubt. "Tate, you sure about this?" he said, his eyes flicking to the gauges, his voice loud over the headset. "That roof's a death trap. Don't crash us." Marcus's jaw tightened, his voice calm, his Detroit grit a shield. "I've landed in worse, Hargrove. Secure the cargo." In the cargo bay, Anna and Liam wrestled with crates of medical supplies, their movements jerky in the chopper's sway. Anna's blonde braid swung, her Swedish accent tense. "He better not screw this up," she muttered, strapping down a box, her eyes on Marcus's back. Liam, his Australian drawl thick, snorted, his hands on a bandage crate. "Mate, this ain't his usual gig. Hope he's as good as he thinks." Their whispers crackled through the headset, a jab Marcus heard but ignored, his focus on the roof, his hands easing the chopper lower, the skids inches from concrete. Yael's voice came through the radio, her Hebrew accent steady from the ground. "Captain Tate, you're clear," she said, her flashlight guiding him, her trust a counterpoint to the team's doubt. The chopper touched down, a perfect landing, the survivors rushing forward, their hands grabbing crates as Anna and Liam slid them out. Marcus kept the rotor spinning, his eyes scanning for hazards, unstable rubble, floodwater lapping the roof's edge. Colin's smirk faltered, his voice grudging. "Not bad, Tate," he said, but his tone still carried an edge, his hands fumbling with the NAV panel. Marcus didn't respond, his voice sharp over the headset. "Anna, Liam, move fast. We've got more runs." The team hustled, but their glances at Marcus were sharp, their earlier doubts, "He's not up for this," still lingering like smoke. On the ground, Sarah Klein, clipboard in hand, coordinated with Yael, her American accent firm. "Tate's the best we've got," she told a volunteer, her eyes on the chopper, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Keep the path clear." Yael nodded, her radio crackling, her voice warm. "He's a pro," she said, ignoring Colin's crew, her flashlight steady. But as the last crate hit the roof, a new shout pierced the night, another hospital, 2 miles out, trapped survivors, no road access. Sarah's voice crackled through Marcus's headset, urgent. "Tate, we need you airborne now. Sector 7, critical injuries, chopper's the only way in." Marcus's heart raced, his hands steady, his voice calm. "Copy, Sector 7, he said, lifting off, the chopper banking sharply, the roof fading below. Colin's eyes widened, his voice tense. "That's a hot zone, Tate. Missile debris, no clear LZ. You sure?" Marcus's eyes flicked to him, his voice steady. "I'm sure. Strap in." Anna's voice crackled, her braid still. "This is insane," she muttered, but her hand secured the last crate, her doubt wavering. Liam's drawl was softer, his hands steady. "He landed that roof, Anna. Give him a chance." The chopper roared toward Sector 7, the sky darkening, missile debris glinting below, the air thick with danger. Colin's smirk returned, his voice sharp. "Don't choke now, Tate," he said, his hands gripping the dash, his doubt a jab. Marcus ignored him, his eyes on the horizon, his hands easing the chopper through turbulence, his training, Haiti, Sudan, Detroit, kicking in. Yael's voice came through, guiding from a ground station. "Captain, watch the East Ridge, unstable structures," she said, her trust unwavering. Sarah's voice followed, firm. "Tate, you've got this. Lives are counting on you." The hospital loomed, a crumbling shell, its roof pocked with holes, survivors waving from a ledge. Marcus banked, his hands steady, his voice a command. "Colin, prep the winch. Anna, Liam, ready the harnesses." Colin hesitated, his smirk gone, his voice a mutter. "This is suicide," he said, but his hands moved, following orders. Anna and Liam worked fast, their earlier snark fading, their eyes on Marcus, his calm a beacon. The chopper hovered, the ledge below a tight target, the wind howling. Marcus's voice cut through, steady. "We're going in. Hold tight. Let's plunge back into the heart-pounding chaos above Haifa, Israel, where the July 2025 night is a maelstrom of wind and smoke, the aftermath of the Iran-Israel war painting the sky with scars of missile strikes and nuclear fallout. The Red Cross chopper's blades thump against the turbulent dusk, floodlights barely piercing the haze over a crumbling hospital in Sector 7. Captain Marcus Tate, a 40-year-old black pilot from Detroit, grips the controls, his flight helmet snug, his navy jumpsuit patched but steady, his dark eyes locked on a pockmarked roof where survivors wave desperately below. His team, Colin Hargrove, a skeptical ex-RAF medic with a clipped British accent, Anna, a Swedish nurse, and Liam, an Australian paramedic, doubt his skill, their earlier taunts, "He's not up for this," still stinging despite his perfect landing on another roof. Colin's latest jab, "Don't choke now, Tate," fades as Marcus hovers, the chopper swaying, his hands a rock in the storm. Yael, a local Israeli medic, guides from the ground, her radio crackling with trust, while Red Cross coordinator Sarah Klein's voice urges him on. The ledge below is a tight target, missile debris a lurking threat, and Marcus's skill is about to silence his team's bias in a way that'll echo far beyond Haifa's ruins. Marcus eased the cyclic, the chopper's nose dipping, his dark eyes narrowing on the hospital's ledge, a jagged slab of concrete barely wide enough for the skids. The survivors, 15, maybe 20, their faces pale, clothes torn, clung to the edge, their shouts lost in the rotor's roar. Wind howled, kicking up debris, the chopper swaying as Marcus held it steady, his hands a surgeon's in the cockpit. Colin, in the co-pilot's seat, gripped the dash, his British accent sharp over the headset. "Tate, this LZ's a bloody nightmare," he said, his smirk gone, his eyes wide with fear. "You'll crash us." Marcus's voice was calm, his Detroit grit a steel thread. "I've got it, Hargrove. Winch ready." In the cargo bay, Anna and Liam scrambled, their harnesses clinking, their faces tense. Anna's blonde braid whipped, her Swedish accent tight. "He's pushing it too far," she muttered, securing a crate, her hands shaking. Liam, his Australian drawl softer, strapped down a stretcher, his eyes on Marcus's back. "He landed the last one, Anna. Let's trust him." Their earlier doubts, "This ain't Detroit," faded under the mission's weight, but Colin's voice crackled, his tone a jab. "Don't drop us, Tate." Marcus ignored him, his hands easing the chopper lower, his eyes scanning for debris, his training, Haiti quakes, Sudan floods, a lifeline in the chaos. Yael's voice came through the headset, her Hebrew accent steady from the ground. "Captain Tate, watch the east corner, unstable rebar," she said, her flashlight a beacon, her trust unwavering. Sarah Klein's voice followed, firm, urgent. "Tate, you're their only shot. Get those people out. Marcus nodded, his helmet snug, his voice a command. Colin, lower the winch. Anna, Liam, prep the harnesses. Colin fumbled with the controls, his hands shaking, his earlier smirk a memory. This is mad, he muttered, but his fingers moved, the winch humming. Anna and Liam hooked harnesses, their movements sharper, their doubts crumbling as Marcus held the chopper steady, inches from the ledge. The hospital roof groaned, a rebar snapping, debris tumbling into the floodwater below, the survivors screaming. Marcus's heart pounded, his hands steady, his voice calm. Stay focused, he said, his eyes locked on the target, the chopper's sway a dance he controlled. A young man, bloodied but standing, waved a tattered shirt, his eyes desperate. Marcus eased lower, the skids grazing concrete, the rotor wash blasting dust. Colin's voice cracked, his hands trembling. Tate, pull up. It's too tight. But Marcus's voice cut through, steady. We're not leaving them. Hook the first survivor. Anna leaned out, her harness taut, her voice tense but trusting. Got the harness. She shouted, lowering it to the young man, who grabbed it, his hands shaking. Liam pulled, his drawl steady. We've got him, Tate. The chopper rocked, a gust slamming it, but Marcus held it, his hands a rock, his eyes on the survivor climbing aboard. Yael's radio crackled, her voice urgent. Captain, more debris falling, hurry. Marcus nodded, his voice calm. 1 down, 14 to go. Keep it tight. The survivors lined up, their hands grabbing harnesses, Anna and Liam working fast, their earlier snark gone. Colin's hands steadied, his voice softer, his British accent grudging. You're pulling it off, Tate, he said, his eyes on the gauges, his doubt wavering. Marcus didn't respond, his focus on the ledge, his hands easing the chopper as each survivor climbed aboard, their weight shifting the craft. The roof cracked, a chunk collapsing, screams rising, and Marcus's voice roared, hold on. He banked sharply, dodging debris, the chopper steady, his skill a beacon in the storm. Sarah's voice crackled, her clipboard forgotten on the ground. Tate, you're a miracle, she said, her American accent thick with awe. 10 more, you've got this. Yael's flashlight swept, her voice steady. Clear for now, Captain. The team pulled survivors aboard, their hands a rhythm, their trust in Marcus growing. Anna's voice was clear, her braid still. He's unreal, she muttered, her respect hard-won. Liam's drawl was firm. Bloody legend, mate. Colin, his hands on the winch, stayed silent, his earlier taunts buried, his eyes on Marcus, a flicker of shame crossing his face. The final survivor, a child, clutching a doll, was hoisted aboard, the roof collapsing behind her, water surging. Marcus pulled up, the chopper soaring, the survivors safe, their cries turning to relief. The team cheered, Anna clapping, Liam shouting, Colin's voice a whisper. You did it, Tate. Marcus's eyes stayed on the controls, his voice calm. We did it, he said, his Detroit grit a quiet fire, his chopper banking toward the airfield, the night a canvas for his triumph. Sarah met them on the ground, her clipboard raised, her voice a proclamation. Tate, you're getting a Red Cross commendation, she said, her eyes shining. You saved them all. Marcus nodded, his jumpsuit torn, his voice steady. For Haifa, he said, his eyes on the survivors, his heart on Detroit. Colin's silence was heavy, his bias exposed, his team's respect now Marcus's. Flash forward, Detroit, 3 months later, a community hall packed, Marcus on stage, his flight log projected, his voice a call. Haifa showed me, he says, his jumpsuit retired, his blazer sharp, you fly through the storm, no matter who doubts you. The crowd roars, his story spreading, churches, schools, airfields, not screens, a black pilot's truth soaring. Have you ever soared above hate to save the day? Share your story in the comments, I'm reading every one. Let's soar back into the heart of Haifa's war-torn night, where the July 2025 sky is a turbulent canvas of smoke and stars, the Iran-Israel conflict scars, missile strikes and nuclear fallout, etched into the city's crumbling skyline. The Red Cross chopper's blades thump through the chaos, floodlights barely cutting the haze over a shattered hospital in Sector 7. Captain Marcus Tate, a 40-year-old black pilot from Detroit, grips the controls, his flight helmet snug, his navy jumpsuit torn but his dark eyes unwavering after a daring rescue that saved 15 survivors from a collapsing roof. His team, Colin Hargrove, a skeptical ex-RAF medic, Anna, a Swedish nurse, and Liam, an Australian paramedic, once doubted his skill, their taunts, "He's not up for this," silenced by his precision. Colin's grudging admission, "You did it, Tate," hangs in the air as Marcus banks the chopper toward the airfield, survivors safe in the cargo bay. Yael, the Israeli medic on the ground, and Red Cross coordinator Sarah Klein cheer his triumph, with Sarah promising a commendation. The rotor wash fades, the night presses in, and Marcus's skill is about to turn his team's bias into a lesson that'll echo far beyond Haifa's ruins. The chopper's blades sliced through Haifa's smoky dusk, the airfield looming below, a scarred patch of tarmac lit by flickering floodlights. Marcus Tate eased the cyclic, his hands steady, his dark eyes scanning for a clear landing zone, the weight of 15 rescued survivors in the cargo bay a quiet victory. His navy jumpsuit was patched, his flight helmet snug, his Detroit grit of fire that burned through the turbulence. In the co-pilot seat, Colin Hargrove sat silent, his clipped British accent muted, his earlier smirk, "Don't choke, Tate," a ghost after Marcus's flawless rescue. His hands gripped the dash, his sandy hair matted, his eyes flicking to Marcus with a mix of shame and awe. "Bloody hell, Tate," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the headset. "You pulled it off." Marcus's lips curved, a faint smile, his voice calm. "We pulled it off, Hargrove. Check the nav." In the cargo bay, Anna and Liam tended to the survivors, their hands steady despite the chopper's sway. Anna's blonde braid was still, her Swedish accent soft as she bandaged a survivor's arm, her earlier doubt, "He's pushing it too far," replaced by respect. "He's unreal," she whispered to Liam, her eyes on Marcus's back. Liam, his Australian drawl warm, secured a stretcher, his voice firm. "Mate's a legend," he said, his earlier snark buried under Marcus's skill. The survivors, a mix of families and medics, clung to harnesses, their faces pale but grateful, their whispers a chorus of thanks. A young girl, clutching a tattered doll, looked at Marcus, her eyes wide. "You saved us," she said, her voice small but clear through the headset. On the ground, Yael waved her flashlight, her Hebrew accent crackling through the radio. "Captain Tate, you're clear to land," she said, her voice warm, her trust a beacon in the chaos. Sarah Klein stood beside her, clipboard raised, her American accent sharp with pride. "Tate, you're a damn hero," she said, her eyes on the chopper, her voice carrying over the airfield's hum. The chopper touched down, skids kissing tarmac, the survivors spilling out, medics rushing to take them to triage tents. Marcus cut the engine, the blade slowing, his hands steady despite the adrenaline crash, his eyes flicking to Colin, who avoided his gaze, his silence a confession. Sarah strode forward, her clipboard a testament, her voice a proclamation. "Tate, you're getting the Red Cross Valor Award," she said, holding up a draft citation, its seal glinting under the floodlights. "You saved those people, kept this mission alive." Marcus nodded, his jumpsuit torn, his voice steady. "For Haifa, not me," he said, stepping onto the tarmac, his helmet under his arm, his dark eyes on the survivors, now safe in the tents. Colin climbed out, his hands shaking, his voice low. I was wrong, he muttered, his British accent thick with shame, his earlier taunts a weight he couldn't shed. Anna and Liam followed, their eyes on Marcus, their respect hard-won. "You're the real deal," Anna said, her braids swinging, her voice soft. Liam clapped Marcus's shoulder, his drawl warm. "Bloody hero, mate." Yael approached, her radio silent, her flashlight down, her voice warm. "You flew like an angel," she said, her Hebrew accent a melody, her eyes shining. "Haifa owes you." Marcus smiled, his voice low. "Just doing my job, Yael." But the airfield buzzed, volunteers whispering, their earlier doubts, "He's not up for this," gone, replaced by awe. Sarah pulled Marcus aside, her clipboard a vow. "Your flight log's going to the Red Cross board," she said, her eyes firm. "This is bigger than Haifa." Colin's face twitched, his silence heavy, his bias exposed as the team's cheers rose, a crane operator shouting, "Tate's the man." A new call crackled through Sarah's radio, a distress signal from a refugee camp 10 miles out, no road access, supplies critical. "Tate, we need you back up," she said, her voice urgent. Colin's eyes widened, his voice a croak. "Another run?" "After that?" Anna and Liam nodded, their hands ready, their trust in Marcus ironclad. Marcus climbed back into the cockpit, his helmet on, his voice calm. "Let's fly," he said, the chopper's blade spinning up, the night a canvas for his skill. Colin, Anna, and Liam strapped in, their silence a salute, and Haifa's ruins watched as Marcus soared, his truth a beacon that'd soon light up more than a city. "Alright, let's land this high-flying saga in Haifa, Israel, where the July 2025 night hums with the fading thump of chopper blades and the enduring scars of the Iran-Israel war, missile strikes and nuclear fallout that left the city a patchwork of rubble and hope." Captain Marcus Tate, a 40-year-old black pilot from Detroit, has just pulled off a daring rescue, saving 15 survivors from a crumbling hospital roof in Sector 7, his navy jumpsuit torn but his dark eyes steady. His team, Colin Hargrove, a once skeptical ex-RAF medic, Anna, a Swedish nurse, and Liam, an Australian paramedic, saw their doubts crumble under Marcus's skill, their earlier taunts, "He's not up for this," replaced by awe. Colin's grudging admission, "I was wrong," and Red Cross coordinator Sarah Klein's promise of a Valor Award marked the moment, while local medic Yael's cheers echo from the ground. The airfield's floodlights glow, the survivors are safe in triage tents, and Marcus's chopper rests, but his truth, a black pilot's unbreakable grit, is about to soar beyond Haifa, not through viral clips or hashtags, but through the raw power of community voices and ink on paper. Let's wrap this with a finale that'll leave you cheering. The Haifa airfield was quiet now, the chopper's blade still, the floodlights casting a soft glow over the tarmac littered with war's debris. Marcus Tate stepped out, his flight helmet under his arm, his navy jumpsuit patched but proud, his dark eyes reflecting the city's resilience. Survivors from Sector 7, now in triage tents, whispered thanks, their faces lit with gratitude, a young girl clutching her doll, a man with a bandaged arm nodding. In the cargo bay, Colin Hargrove, Anna, and Liam unloaded the last crates, their silence a testament, their earlier doubts buried. Colin's sandy hair was matted, his British accent soft as he approached Marcus, his hand extended, his voice low. "Tate, I was a fool," he said, his eyes meeting Marcus's, shame clear. "You're the best damn pilot I've seen." Marcus shook his hand, his smile faint but real, his voice steady. "Learn from it, Hargrove. We fly together now." Anna, her blonde braid loose, bandaged a survivor's wrist, her Swedish accent warm. "You're a hero, Marcus," she said, her eyes shining, her earlier snark a memory. Liam, his Australian drawl thick, clapped Marcus's shoulder, his voice firm. "Mate, you saved us all." "Legend." Yael, on the ground, radio in hand, joined them, her Hebrew accent bright. "Haifa's talking about you, Captain," she said, her flashlight down, her smile wide. "You're our angel." Sarah Klein, clipboard raised, strode forward, her American accent sharp with pride. "Tate, the Red Cross Valor Award is yours," she said, holding up the citation, its seal gleaming. "Your flight log's going to the board. You've changed this mission." Marcus nodded, his jumpsuit torn, his voice steady. "For the people, not me," he said, his eyes on the tents, his heart flashing to Detroit, his mom's kitchen, where he promised to make her proud, his flight school days battling doubters. The airfield buzzed, volunteers sharing his story, their whispers spreading, not online, but in mess halls, synagogues, and refugee camps, a black pilot's truth taking wing. Colin, Anna, and Liam, now allies, vowed to retrain on inclusivity, their hands steady, their respect hard-won. Flash forward to Detroit, 3 months later, a community aviation hall packed, engineers, pilots, and kids filling the seats, their eyes on Marcus. He's on stage, his blazer sharp, his flight log projected, his voice a steady rhythm, like a preacher at a revival. "Haifa taught me," he says, his eyes bright, "you don't just fly choppers, you lift people, no matter who doubts you." The crowd roars, his mom in the front row, her Sunday dress bright, her eyes wet with pride. "That's my boy," she whispers, her phone down, her heart full. The Detroit Free Press runs a feature, Black Pilot's Heroic Soar over Haifa, with photos of Marcus's chopper, his citation, and survivors' faces, quoted in Aviation Week. Readers flood the paper with letters, sharing tales of overcoming bias, Marcus's story a spark for change. Colin's reckoning is quiet but deep. The Red Cross reassigns him to training, his medic days paused, his apology letter to Marcus read at a team debrief, his shame a lesson. Anna and Liam launch a Red Cross diversity program, their hands now symbols of unity, their voices echoing Marcus's call. Yael, back in Haifa, trains medics, her story of Marcus told at community centers, a beacon for Israel's rebuild. Sarah, now a Red Cross director, nominates Marcus for a Global Aviation Award, her citation a testament to his impact. Detroit embraces Marcus's legacy, community centers hosting Tate's Takeoff workshops, teaching kids to fly drones, funded by his old flight school. The Free Press series inspires a UN Aviation Equity panel, Marcus its keynote, his voice soaring. He returns to his hangar, his chopper ready, his mom's jerk chicken waiting, his mission clear. Haifa wasn't just a rescue, it was a revolution, a black pilot's truth lifting a city, a world. So, what's your story? Have you soared above hate to save the day? Drop it in the comments, I'm reading every one. If Marcus's flight lit you up, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let's keep building a world where every pilot flies free, and every sky's open.